Okay, ignition coil pack replacements. We did this after the valve cover gasket and spark plugs. Those are the 4 ignition coils you can see connected. Also, before I begin, I just have to say this is probably the worst videography I've ever seen in my life. So I apologize in advance. There was a lot of times I was just kind of holding things out of the way to help with space because it's so tight in there. So that's the new one. I bought this at AutoZone, and it's an expensive part to replace. And honestly, most people will never have to replace this in their car. We just plan on keeping our car for a long time. So we decided to go ahead and replace it. And just because of some of the problems we've been having. So first thing, make sure the battery is disconnected. It already was because we were working on other projects. So you take apart that electrical connection there was the first thing. There's 2 huge bolts that stick out from the engine block that these nuts go on. And so it's super tight in there. That's probably the worst part of doing this replacement because it's an easy part. It's an easy connection, but there's just no space. The air filter is right there to the right, and that is just really tight. I think we did end up disconnecting one of the hoses at some point to get to the, yeah, here we go. We're taking them off that hose because there's a screw on the back side also, kind of like as a L bracket looking type part. And that one was pretty oxidized. So that took us, or not us, it took my husband forever to get it off. We had to use a series of different tools, and it was a 12 millimeter was the size socket that we had originally were working with. Okay, yeah, we had to use a mallet to loosen that up, just really gently. Okay, so now removing the ignition coil connectors, he ends up using some air, some compressed air to kind of just loosen it up and get under there. Here he goes. And that just was real easy. That was the way to go with those. And you just want to be really careful that you're not damaging those tips. And unless you're planning on replacing the ignition coils too, which we probably should have done, but we didn't. I don't know what I'm filming here, but I think it was just him getting out that last screw. We kept it in to kind of keep it in place, but it took forever. So you can see the numbers on the coil pack, and it doesn't go like 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe it was like 2, 4, 3. Yeah, 2, 3, 4, 1. So that correlates to the hoses and to the spark plugs. So you just have to make sure that you're putting all the hoses back, not hoses, but whatever they are, connections back in the right spot. So you can see those 2 bolts. You have to get everything over that. And that's why it's tight. It kind of lessens the amount of space that's in there. But it also makes the part very snug in the engine. Okay, so at this point we're just kind of putting everything, and I believe he just kind of put everything on pretty loose just to get everything in place and then tightened it all up because it was hard to just fit everything in. And obviously, like, you can see how tight that is to be able to line everything up. So again, this is one of those projects that just pay someone to go do it if you don't have to do it yourself. Unless you like working on it. We do have found this kind of interesting to work on our car, but you know, this took us all day, and we did three parts on this same day, and it took us forever just because we were like, it was raining and then thundering, and then we had to like take breaks because of that, and then just figuring everything out. And because of how old some of the pieces were, things were stuck. So it just was, by this point we were like so sick of working on the car, but whatever, we had to get it done. Okay, so just tightening everything back up. And again, trying to do the best I could with the camera work, but it was really hard to get in there. And the main point of even putting this video up is just if someone wants to see before they get into it, if they even want to do the job. That's why I figured put these videos out there. Not saying that we are doing, expert work. Again, we're not mechanics, and it's best to have a professional do this. But, I always find these kind of videos helpful. Okay, and I probably should have spread this part up, but yeah, that little, just the working space is like really tough in there. And just trying to make sure you're keeping everything from getting damaged. We did break off a little piece of the electrical connection, which you'll see that in the video. I think I was just holding it in place so that he could get in there tighter. You do not need two people to do this. It did help just having another hand just to hold some of the pieces up when needed. And just holding some of those wires out of the way for him to be able to reach. Okay, so this is where you'll see the piece kind of fly off. It just broke it's like a little piece of plastic that holds it in place. Yep, there it goes. So towards the end of the video, you'll just see he ends up putting some electrical tape on. It was pretty snug, but we just, when the engine's moving and in motion, things loosen up. So, we ended up taping it. So at this point, we're just putting everything back. So just making sure, double checking, the way the hoses are all lined up, it's pretty easy. Just put them back where they're supposed to be. But you can see the number of the cylinder correlating with the number on the coil pack. And we just made sure to put them back how they are. And connecting that hose was one of the things. We just took that off only to have access to the back side where that one screw needed to be removed and replaced. It just helped to have more space in there. It's like right underneath where my hand is that you have to get into. And just putting that clamp on. Okay, and so at this point, everything is back together and where it needs to be. And we're just kind of looking at everything, making sure, double checking. Here he goes, putting some electrical tape over that. Just to be safe, better safe than sorry. But yeah, it is like you need to have the dexterity to get in there. It was pretty tight. Okay. So then just putting the cover back on. Again, those are 10 millimeter was the size for those bolts. And then at the end, just connecting the battery terminals back up. And that was a new battery too that we got. So yeah, that was it. Stay tuned for the alternator video next.